It was the height of the Cold War, a time when the world lived in the shadow of annihilation. Across the globe, nuclear arsenals multiplied. Nations dug bunkers, families practiced survival drills. Every child knew the sound of the siren. Every adult knew one wrong decision, one wrong move could end everything. In those years, America never truly slept. Bomber aircraft circled endlessly above the clouds, engine roaring through day and night, each carrying weapons powerful enough to wipe cities from the map. They were the guardians of peace, but they were also flying doomsday machines. On the night of January 24, 1961, one of those bombers lifted off from Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in North Carolina. Inside its belly rested 2 hydrogen bombs, each more than 200 times the power of Hiroshima. The men on board had flown missions like this before. To them it was routine. But that night, something was different. That night, the line between peace and catastrophe began to blur. What followed was not war, not sabotage, but a chain of failures so small and yet so devastating that it nearly ended America in the dead of night. This is the story of Goldsboro Incident, the night North Carolina came within a single switch of nuclear destruction. The aircraft was a B-52G Stratofortress, tail number 580187, a flying fortress of the Cold War. It was massive, nearly 160 feet across, built to carry not bombs but entire cities worth of destruction. On the night of January 24, 1961, it lifted off from Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in North Carolina. Its mission, routine yet terrifying. It was part of the Operation Chrome Dome, a program that kept American bombers circling the skies at all times, loaded with live nuclear weapons, ready to strike the Soviet Union within minutes. The idea was simple. If the Soviets ever attacked, the United States would never be caught flat-footed. Its bombers were already aloft, armed and waiting. But that safety came with a cost. The constant gamble of flying doomsday machines above American soil. Inside 580187 were 8 crew members. Veteran airmen, disciplined and steady, accustomed to the endless hum of the engines and the cold, empty hours of airborne alert. To them, this was another long night, another patrol, another reminder of the tense, invisible standoff between East and West. But the most dangerous part of the mission wasn't the Soviet Union. It was what the aircraft carried itself. Secured in its belly were 2 Mark 39 thermonuclear bombs. Each one held a yield of more than 3 megatons. For comparison, the bomb drop on Hiroshima was 15 kilotons. Each Mark 39 carried more than 200 times that power. One bomb alone could erase an entire metropolis, Washington, New York, or Moscow. Together, they could have rewritten the map of the world. That night, as the B-52G soared into the icy January air, America's fate unknowingly rested in those 2 silent, slumbering giants of destruction. It all began as a flicker of the gauges, a dip in the numbers that didn't make sense. At 35,000 feet, the crew of 580187 realized their fuel supply was vanishing. Somewhere inside the right wing, a major leak had sprung. Gallons of jet fuel were spilling into the freezing night air. They tried everything, balancing the load, pumping fuel from one tank to another, adjusting the controls to compensate. But it was of no use. The B-52 was bleeding to death. Tens of thousands of pounds of fuel, the lifeblood of this airborne giant, were pouring into the night sky. By 12:30 a.m., the emergency had grown critical. The controls were sluggish, unresponsive. The plane was slipping away from them, heavier, harder to manage, and its stability drained with every lost gallon. Due to the emergency, the men were ordered to return to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. But the truth was inescapable. Time had already run out, and in just minutes, the B-52G would cease to be a bomber and become a falling coffin, carrying the power of Armageddon. The bomber was wounded. For nearly an hour, the crew had fought to keep her alive, shifting fuel, wrestling controls, praying the giant would hold together. But as they dropped through the cold January sky, the B-52 began to shudder. Metal groaned, rivets snapped, the airframe, 40 tons of steel and fuel were ripping itself apart in the mid-air, and then it happened. At 10,000 feet, the stratofortress came undone. The cockpit tore away, the fuselage split open. A storm of steel and fire scattered across the night sky. 8 men were caught in the chaos. 5 men escaped, hurled into freezing darkness. Their chutes opened like fragile lifelines. But one of them never made it. His ejection seat failed, and 2 more were trapped inside the wreckage as it spiraled toward the earth. But in the chaos of that breakup, something far more terrifying happened. Both Mark 39 hydrogen bombs, each one capable of annihilating entire cities, broke loose from the bomber's belly. They then tumbled through the night air, silent, unstoppable, falling toward the quiet farmland of North Carolina. America's nightmare was no longer in the sky, it was falling toward the ground. As the 2 bombs fell toward the earth, the first bomb behaved as if it had been deliberately dropped in combat. Its parachute deployed, its arming sequence began. Step by step, the weapon moved closer to detonation. The separation from the aircraft was complete. The parachute opened. The arming wires connected. The high voltage switch activated. The ready-to-fire light lit. The 5 out of 6 safety mechanisms had failed. Only one small switch, a low voltage arming device, remained in the safe position. A switch no longer than a coin. That night, it saved millions of lives. The bomb floated gently down and landed in a tree near the town of Faro, North Carolina, fully armed, waiting, but silent. The second bomb that fell did not open its parachute. It fell at nearly 700 miles per hour, slamming into a muddy swamp. The force of impact of the second bomb shattered it completely. Debris scattered across the marshland. Teams later discovered pieces of its casing, its fusing system, even the uranium secondary, but not all of it. Due to the impact, deep underground, unrecoverable parts of the bomb laid, including sections of the uranium core. To this day, the United States government maintains a permanent easement on that land. Bomb fragments remain sealed beneath a farmer's field in Goldsboro. As dawn broke, the Air Force and Army swarmed the area. Roads were blocked, locals were evacuated, soldiers in protective gear combed through frozen mud, cutting trees, digging through swamps. The bomb number 1, which was live, was disarmed with extreme caution. Engineers knew one wrong movement could complete the circuit and trigger a nuclear detonation. Bomb number 2's core was declared irretrievable. The hole where it fell was filled with concrete and the site fenced off. For years, the official story downplayed the risk, and the Air Force assured the public there was no chance of a nuclear explosion, but document tells another story. In 2013, a secret report by Sandia National Laboratories was declassified. It revealed what really happened that night. Bomb number 1 had gone through nearly every step of detonation. 5 safety systems had failed. The weapons was armed, ready, and waiting. The only barrier between North Carolina and a thermonuclear disaster was a single low-voltage switch. Had that switch flipped, the entire eastern seaboard might have seen a fireball stretching miles wide. Tens of thousands killed instantly, radiation spreading across states, Washington, New York, Philadelphia, all facing contamination, panic, and collapse. The United States would have accidentally detonated its own doomsday weapon on its own soil, on its own people. The Goldsboro Incident remains one of the closest calls in nuclear history. Not an enemy strike, not sabotage, just a leaking fuel tank and a chain of events that came within one switch of Armageddon. It is a reminder of how fragile nuclear safety can actually be, how enormous weapons rest on the smallest pieces of engineering, and how thin the line is between peace and destruction. On that cold January night in 1961, the world was saved, not by human hands, not by military strength, but by a simple, fragile piece of wiring, a switch that held back the end of America.